Depending on how smart a student is, they will require different levels of support. For students who are struggling in school, you will obviously do things differently in terms of upbringing compared to a student who finds everything in school easy. For students who are behind, it is a bit of a no-brainer. Parents already know that they need to speak to their school teacher to create a plan, spend more time with their child in the subject that they're particularly weaker in, and maybe consider tutoring if they cannot assist themselves. However, what should parents do for students who are gifted and talented and those who are quite above average? Let's get into it. An academically gifted child is still a child no matter what their talent is. Every child needs time to laugh and play and relax like other children. If you expected me to just get them to study all the time, you are incorrect. As a child who was only slightly above average or just average, if I had to study hours and hours every day with limited break, I don't think I'll be the same person I am today. Even though I may be even better academically in my exams, I believe I would be ultimately less social, talkative, and have less common sense if all I did was study all the time. I'm glad my parents gave enough of a challenge to push me to make use of my abilities, so I did not become complacent, but did not push me to the point where it was too overwhelming. This is especially going to be beneficial for parents who recently just find out that the child is actually gifted. Parents may find this out through a number of ways, such as through their school teachers, exams like the OC and Selective exam, or even from day-to-day life. Regardless of how you find out, it is all about how you help your child nurture their gifts. Let's say that your child is quite smart and in year 1 they won a writing competition. If they don't do much in year 2 because you might think they're already good at it, they can quickly regress in terms of performance, and by the time they get to year 3, they may just be average. Although if you harness their ability consistently over time and did not become complacent in year 2, they will likely still be well above average as the standard gets higher and higher every year. But since you're already above average in year 1, you will still be able to keep up with that pace. In today's video, I'll be going through some ideas that I believe that can help parents know how to help in terms of educate their children if they are gifted and talented. Depending on the student's interest, they may be attracted to different types of activities outside of school. This can be another language such as Chinese or Italian. Everyone knows it is cool to have another language in case you go to another country or you need to talk to someone else. However, the benefits goes beyond this, as children who learn another language when they are younger are generally going to have better concentration compared to someone who can only speak a single language. This is a huge advantage growing up, and for those who are already smart, this can be a great opportunity or an option for them to capitalize on this. Beyond another language, it can be art, sport, dance, music, or drama. There are so many different opportunities that will help them creatively and allow them to learn something new and harness their intelligence. However, you should not assign and sign up your child to everything under the sun. The reason why is because of burnout. Burnout is a big risk, and there needs to be a good balance between studies, relaxing, and doing extracurricular activities. Plus, it can also be quite expensive financially to do all of these outside of school hours. This was the case for me when I was young. I enjoyed doing tennis every week, and I even signed up to Taekwondo. When you add a bunch of group tutoring to that mixture as well, and you factor in the time dedicated to studies in general and just hanging out with friends, I personally did not have much time to myself. Perhaps learning an instrument would have been nice for me, but I did not need to learn another language as I already spoke Cantonese at home. Sport was just more interesting for me personally, as I was quite fragile with asthma growing up. I deliberately phrased this section as help them financially, and the reason why is because it is going to have a cost assigned to it. Going to the park and having fun with the local kids is fine, but the benefit of them signing up to certain classes and learning a new language, for instance, will in many cases be much more beneficial for gifted and talented children. I eventually stopped doing Taekwondo because it did get too expensive for my family. I instead replaced this with basketball, so do not think that you have to choose the most expensive extracurricular activity just because you know that your son or daughter is gifted and talented. There are low-cost opportunities as well. There are budget options for families who are not financially well off, and I'm pretty sure tennis was about $15 for an hour a week in a group setting, of course, and I believe basketball was either $5 to $10 for an hour or an hour and a half. Gifted students and children can typically answer questions and solve multi-step problems in their mind. That is why I believe parents should try to encourage them to communicate their ideas clearly. This includes more than just a yes or no response, which are closed-ended questions. Parents should be using open-ended questions such as, what was the best thing about school today? As it is not a yes or no response. Also, be sure to ensure that their handwriting is legible and clear enough to read. This is important for students heading into high school, as there are going to be questions that are worth more than a simple mark, and if the marker cannot read it, you will not be given the marks. If they only write a short response without providing evidence or a proper explanation, you cannot expect that you'll get more than a mark for that question, even though it's partially correct. That is why students should learn and be encouraged as early as possible about the importance of being legible and communicating their ideas clearly. Following a set structure may be quite annoying for gifted and talented students, as it does slow down their thought process as they have to follow a process. However, this is an important part of ensuring that their responses are going to be even better and logical in the future. For instance, back in primary school, in all of my school assessments, I did not really have to plan my narrative and persuasive writing task at all, and I would still be near the top of the class. I would choose whatever ideas I had and decide which format I wanted to be in, but it was largely free flow from the top of my mind. This, however, did not work when I went into Penrith High School, which is a selective high school, where everyone was quite smart because their natural ability was comparable or even better than mine, and any student who could simply apply a structure such as Peel would knock me out of the park in terms of academics. It took me a while to adapt and realize the importance of this, but this is something that parents can do early on. In our private tutoring lessons, whenever a student chooses a question, if they cannot explain the thought process to why they chose that answer, we generally do not move on. It's an indication that they do not really get it. We also get our students to write on paper whenever we can, especially for homework, and this will ensure that their writing is more legible and just help us see if there's any spelling or grammar errors. This is so important to have a blend of online and physical learning, just because we know that in school there's still going to be a component where it's going to be online, as well as a component where you still have to write down on paper. We know that the opportunity class and the selective exam are transitioning to be an online test, but they've been talking about this for a couple of years now, and even the test this year, earlier this year, was on paper. Gifted children often also set very high standards for themselves and get frustrated when they do not meet them. This can be influenced by their family and parents who have high expectations for them. For gifted students, it is great that they work towards high standards, but they have to realize that it is acceptable to make mistakes and not be the best at everything. Mistakes help us realize what to do differently next time, and we do not need to be perfect. Self-compassion needs to be encouraged for these students when things do not go to plan to what they expect. This is particularly important in subjects that are not related to academics or are lower in the priority. Whether it be sport, games, or art, there are some activities that can just be for fun. Not everything should be a competition or you have to be number one in. To relate this to my own personal experience, I generally always like to win. I like the feeling of winning. I like to know that my effort is going towards something, and I like to be rewarded for my effort and work that I put in. This attitude has helped me tremendously for academics, but has also made me suffer at times in certain activities. I remember one time in basketball, I was playing with my friends just for fun, but I really wanted to kind of win that as well. Everyone was taking it easy as it was just a social activity while I was running around scoring, and I remember feeling quite frustrated that my team did not treat it as important as I did, even though it was just a social game. I know, right? Looking back, it was a little bit unreasonable, but that's what I did when I was young. And because of that, it was only until I did some self-reflection and noticed the reaction of the people around me, the people that I played with, and I realized that I placed too much importance and too much pressure on this game. I was too engrossed and focused on winning, and it made other people that I played with a little bit uneasy, where I should have just treated it as just a fun game and didn't even matter as long as I had fun. I like the feeling of winning, but not at the cost of being ostracized and alone. Since then, I realized it is more okay to be competitive and to have high standards, but only in certain situations, especially not during a social game when the objective is just to have fun. Gifted children may also relate to my experience, and we should help them have the right expectations and not put the ceiling too high, as they've already put high expectations on themselves to succeed. Discipline is necessary for a balanced family life, and this applies to all children, whether or not they are gifted. Gifted children in particular, though, are usually very good at pushing the boundaries in a very subtle way because they can get around the rules unconventionally compared to students who are not gifted. Parents need to stand their ground, as being smart is not an excuse for unacceptable behavior at home. When there is something that has been done wrong, it is important to explain the reason why the action is not acceptable if there is a lapse in discipline. Gifted children are more receptive to a rational argument than many children, as they can process arguments and logical thinking more easily. What I suggest parents can do is if they can help their children be more organized. At times, they may also get caught up with the bigger idea and forget the basics, such as bringing the correct textbook or to bring their sports gear for training after school. They may be then used to blame everyone but themselves, but it's important as the parent to hold them accountable for forgetting their textbook or their sports gear for their actions. Parents can assist in reminders and encourage the use of a homework diary and lesson planning schedule to organize these daily activities. Although if they do make a mistake or forget something important, it is great to use it as an accountability exercise and ensure they take responsibility for it. It is not your fault, it is their fault for not being prepared and organized. This is an important step in managing a healthy routine and ensuring that these gifted and talented children follow the family rules and routines that are set. The last point is to ensure that bright children should have access to a computer and the internet. This will allow them to research areas that they are personally interested in, and I think with COVID-19, remote learning has helped propel this. In the past, parents were very against online learning and what that entails. At times, this is understandable because parents are concerned that it can be a big distraction, that it is not the best use of the students' time, and if they do not have access to the internet, they would actually be able to learn more. However, I believe that as we are going out of COVID-19 lockdowns and everything like that, blended learning will always be a component of education here in Australia. I'm not saying to make it completely remote, because that will also not be effective either. Writing on paper, using physical textbooks, while also having access to a computer is the right approach. Ensuring there is a clear system to follow so they do not abuse using a device and going on the internet is also important. Although I do think that many parents have to embrace technology to an extent, because we are moving to a society that is embracing it more and more. But I believe that some parents still have to come to terms with this movement. In conclusion, having an academically gifted child is a blessing. They come with unique problems and challenges just like any other child. They are curious, enthusiastic, and excited about new things. Supporting them financially, encourage them to share their ideas more clearly, helping them have more realistic expectations, being firm on family routines, and ultimately embracing technology for education are just some ways that I believe that parents can use this to help nurture their children, to ensure that they make use of their talents. It is by no means everything, but it is good points to keep in mind. If you have any other ideas that you think that some other parents or children can help utilize beyond these points, or if you have any kind of thoughts on some of the points that I mentioned, feel free to write it down in the comments below. If you like the video and you like these types of videos, make sure to like it and subscribe if you haven't already. I try to share educational content as often as I can, and to share the advice that I wish that I learned when I was younger. But anyway, that's all about me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.